What's up guys, it's Wolf with the Quarantine, and today we're going to be taking a look at a game that's going to be seeking funding on Kickstarter by the name of Universal Rule from Button Shy Games. Now if you like what you see here, I will have a link to the Kickstarter up here when it's available. It'll take you directly over to their Kickstarter page and it'll provide way more information than I could possibly cover here. So, what is Universal Rule? Well, Universal Rule is a 4X style game, but compressed into 18 cards and then some tokens. Currently I'm using actual money, but the game will come with tokens. But the game is typical 4X style, where you can expand, exploit, explore, and exterminate your opponents, and you're trying to be the first one to get to a set amount of victory points. So let's just go straight over to how the game is played, shall we? Alright, before I start, I do have to state that this is a review, it is not a tutorial, so if I skip any rules or if I mess any of them up, this should still give you a basic idea of whether or not the game is for you and whether or not it's something you should check out. The other thing being, everything you see here is of course a prototype copy of the game and is of course subject to change. And that is including rules and the art. So you're going to take the Universal Rule card, you're going to place it here in the middle of the table. You're going to put all the coins where it can easily be reached by each player. Each player will then take 2 credits as their starting credits. And you're going to shuffle this deck and you're going to deal each player 3 cards. Now I should mention this game can play 3 to 5 players and it has a variable victory point amount depending on the number of players. I am going to only set this up and demonstrate with, of course, 1 player, but just know everything is the same, just each player does it. So when you get these 3 cards, let me explain what is on each card. So you have the credit amount, there we go, you have the credit amount it's going to take to play that card. You have military strength, production value, special text pertaining to that card, and victory points. Now if the side that has the wings on the military strength is their fleet value. So if you flip the card over, you notice there's no fleet value here, it's just military strength. And the numbers are generally just bigger, and along with victory points. So you're going to choose one of these to keep and you're going to discard the other ones. So I'm going to go ahead and get rid of that card. Once everybody's discarded their card, you're going to go ahead and shuffle these up real good. And then now you're ready to play. So throughout the game you're going to take one of numerous different actions. The actions you can take are explore, you can colonize, you can upgrade, you can produce, and you can attack. Now attacking I'm going to explain last because it's probably the most complicated one of the bunch. So to explore, you're going to take one of your credits, you're going to pay it to the bank, and you will draw a single card. Once you take your action, it's going to move to the next player. They get a chance to follow. Once everybody follows, then the next player in rotation is going to then take their action. And I'll explain that a little bit more in a moment. But that was one of the things you can explore. The other thing you can do is you can colonize. So the gold value up here, you can pay that to the bank. So I can pay 2 in this case. And I can play this card face up in front of me. I now get access to whatever the text is on the card, and I have access to all these symbols, and I now have a victory point in this situation. The other thing you're allowed to do is you can upgrade. So let's say I have some money here. In order to upgrade a card, you would pay the difference between this and this. So in this case I would need to pay 10 credits, and you can take this and flip it. So if you flip it, this is now worth 3 victory points instead. It has higher combat value, higher production value, and each other planet I own is worth 1 victory point. So that'd be really good. So I would have to pay 10 in this situation if I already had this up. Now I should note that you can, if you have 12 credits and this is in your hand, you can play it from your hand on the upgraded side. You don't have to play it unupgraded and then upgrade it. The other thing you can do is you can produce. So the little green cog here, for every planet you have face up, if your action is to produce, you would get whatever is shown in the green cog. So in this case I get 2 credits because of this planet and 2 credits because of this planet. So I would gain 4 credits. And then the last thing you could do is to attack. Now again, I'll explain attacking in a minute. Once you take your action in turn order, the next player gets a choice to follow. So when you take your action, you will declare what the follow cost is going to be. So I can go, you know what, I will throw this out and I'll draw a card to explore. My follow cost is going to be 1 credit. And it could be a minimum of 1, but it could be whatever you want it to be. So I can go, my follow cost is going to be 1 credit. So the next player in line can decide that they will pay the bank 1 credit to explore, but then they will also pay you your follow cost. So if I had said 2 credits to follow, they would pay me 2 credits, they would pay 1 credit back to the bank, and then they would then get to draw a card. So it allows you to take actions outside of your normal turn. Once everybody gets a chance to follow, then it goes to the next player's turn, and then they get to choose an action, everybody gets to follow, a chance to follow, so on and so forth. You're going to keep doing that until you have a total of between 15 or 11 and 15 victory points, depending on the number of players you're playing with. Now let me go ahead and explain how attacking works. So I mentioned this little red hexagon thing here, which is your combat strength. So this has a 6 and this has a 2. So let's say my opponent has this and I have the 6. So I can declare, you know what, I'm going to attack your planet there. So as of right now, I'm attacking with 6, they're defending with 2. I'm going to win. If you win, the loser, the defender, is going to either downgrade their planet if it's been upgraded, or if it hasn't been upgraded, it will be destroyed instead. The attacker, if they win, will then claim the rule card, which gives them 6 victory points. So it's very important to win fights. So let's go into a little more detail how fights work. So in this case, I'm attacking a 2 with a 6. I'm winning by 4. So starting with the attacker, any cards that are in their hand, you can add the fleet value, which again is the value with the wings, face down. So I can go, you know what, I will add 4. You go ahead and just place it here. And then the player to the left, whether or not they're involved in this fight or not, can then decide they're going to add some cards. So this player here can go, you know what, I'll go ahead and add this. They're not going to say who they're going to be supporting. You're allowed to wheel and deal during this and whatnot. So they might add this. Then the defender can also do the same thing. You know, the defender will go, we'll go ahead and drop this down. You can drop as many as you want. So let's say they do that. And it goes around the table. Then each player is allowed to add credits as combat strength. So this might be a little confusing. Any planet that you have down here that is not involved in the fight, so in this case I have a 5 combat strength. So I will be allowed to commit up to 5 credits to this fight, which will add 5 to the number here, the overall combat strength. So you're going to put it in your hand, similar to, you know, any kind of blind bidding kind of game like Spartacus or something. You'll put it in your hand, and then once everybody's ready, you're going to count down, and then you're going to point at either the attacker or the defender and who you're supporting. And of course, the attacker and defender, they don't have to do that, but anybody else supporting does. You're going to reveal, you're going to add everything up. So I got my 5. Let's say this player decided they were going to support me, so they're adding 2. I'm adding a 5, so that's 7 plus my 6. And to there, let's see, they're 2, that's 6, so that's 7, 8, 9, 10. So yeah, I definitely decimated them by, 13 plus 5, so it's 18. So I would win. All the cards committed, not the planets, would then be discarded. The planet would be downgraded or destroyed if need be. The attacker would claim the rule card if they win, and any credits that you committed to the fight are also discarded. And that's basically how the game works. Now there's one last thing that you need to know. This one is a little more complicated, so if this doesn't make too much sense, I'm sorry. I'll try to explain it as best I can. But you can do what's called a sneak victory attack. So let's say we're playing with 5 players. I need 11 victory points to win. So I have 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So let's say right here I got 10 victory points. I only need 1 more victory point in order to win. So what I can do is any cards that I have in my hand, you can commit your fleet value, which again is the number with the wings, and you can try to commit that, and you get half of your fleet power round down in victory points, unless somebody decides to counter you with more. So let's say I only need one, and I don't want to get rid of all my cards, so let's say I commit this. So on my turn I can go, I'm going to try to sneak attack, and I'm going to commit 2 fleet to give me my last victory point. But then somebody else around the table can go, I'll go ahead and commit this 5, which is bigger than yours, so I'm canceling yours. And then these would of course be discarded, but you stopped me from trying to sneak out a little victory. And other than that, the game is just going to go around until somebody reaches either 15, 13, or 11 victory points, depending on the number of players. And that is basically a universal rule. So let's go to my final thoughts. Alright, universal rule. Well, right out of the gates, I do need to mention that one of my favorite things about Button Shy games is that, aside from the rules, the entire game fits in a tiny little wallet pouch like this. So it's a game. These are games that you can grab, toss in your glove box, throw in your back pocket, go to a party, break it out, have fun, whatever. And I like that. I really like that concept, and some of their games are a little hit or miss, but for the most part they make some pretty decent games. Now the problem with the universal rule is the entire game no longer fits in this. You have a bunch of tokens and for money. Now of course I'm using, because it's a prototype, I'm using actual coins, and the game is probably going to come with cardboard punch-outs, but in my opinion it still defeats part of the purpose of Button Shy games, is these really light little wallet-sized games. But that's just something I feel should be noted. Now on to the actual game. So the game functionally works really well. The artwork's great on the cards. I love the space theme, and it does feel like a 4X. It works in that respect very, very well. The problem that we had with the game is that it feels like it's too much for too small of a game. Now, I played this with several people, and universally the opinions were pretty much the same. The best quote that I was able to give is that, it's a 4X game narrowed down to 18 cards. And one of the players said, just because you can doesn't mean you should. And I think that encompasses the game perfect. So what am I talking about? Well, a couple of people that I played with said that the game is just too complicated for how small it is, which I really like complex games. I recently got, Tide of Iron. It's a pretty complicated game. I used to play Warhammer, stuff like that. I do enjoy complicated games that make you have to think about everything you're doing, and I like that a lot. But when you're playing a game with 18 cards that's supposed to fit in this, I'm not expecting a brain burner, unless I'm playing one of their other games, Pentacork. You go in knowing that it's a brain burner puzzle game. This one just feels too complicated, especially when you got all these different actions that you can take. Granted, there's only 5, but you got to remember, okay, well, to explore, you got to pay one to the bank. But then you also have to do follow costs. So now I got to pay you money and then into the bank, and then I get to do it. Or you colonized, you put a follow cost of 3, so I have to pay you 3, but then I got to pay 6 because this planet needs 6. Or, I want to upgrade this planet, and the difference between 2 and 8 is 6, so I got to pay 6 now. And it feels way more complicated and completely unnecessary. Like, I love 4X games. Eclipse being one of my favorite games. I really like Twilight Imperium. On the PC, I love 4X games, but it just feels too compressed, I guess you could say, to narrow it down to 18 cards. Now, I know it sounds like I'm ragging on the game, and I kind of am to an extent, because the game plays well. I'm not saying it's a bad game by any stretch of the word, but it's too small for what it is. It's too complicated for how small of a game it is. If you're into that, the game plays functionally well. However, we also did have a couple other complaints by that. Now, if I attack you and I win, I'm going to either downgrade or destroy your planet. Cool. And as the attacker, I get the rule card, which just gives me 6 points. Awesome. Now, there's no penalty for not just attacking all the time and taking out your planets and then just following everything you do. And the problem with that lies in, if I attack you and your defense, according to the rules as written that I have anyways, if I attack you and your defense stops me from attacking you, I have no penalty. Nothing happens. That's it. And I just felt that seems like a small oversight, because there are some combinations of cards that just make attacking obscenely overpowered. I can't remember any of them offhand, but I do remember one player had 2 different cards that the way they chained off each other is every time he attacked, he just got a bunch of free money, and he could also force somebody to support him every time. And because of that, there isn't a penalty for playing smart. You're rewarded for just attacking every round. There's really no reason not to, because somebody is going to produce, and yeah, they can jack the follow cost really high up, and that'll kind of put a damper on you. But still, it has some balancing issues from what we determined. So that honestly is basically universal rule. Like I mentioned, it's not a bad game. It just feels too compressed to be a proper 4X game. So anyways, that is my review for Universal Rule. If you like my channel, check me out on Patreon up here. Any support definitely helps. I have a Twitch and Twitter that I will also have in the comments if you like that. Again, I also will have a link to this Kickstarter up here if you are interested in that as well. And I will see you guys next time in the quarantine.